Hello guys and welcome to the FPL Hitman channel. In today's video we're gonna do a beginner's guide to FPL or Fantasy Premier League, however you wanna call it, for the managers that are playing this game for the first time specifically, but there are gonna be some information here that will serve other experienced manager as well. First things first, what is FPL? Fantasy Premier League is a game based on real life football. So the purpose of the game is that you select a team of players that based on real life performance on the pitch, on the game, they're gonna accumulate points and you're gonna have a grand total of points. Obviously, the point is to win, as in accumulate the most points throughout the season. That's why they invented a global rank, because how can you compete if it doesn't have like a ladder, a championship ladder or something like this? So, for example, last season there were over 10 million managers. I think at the end of the season there were like 11.4 million managers in the world. So at the start of the game, there are not gonna be as much managers as at the end. But if you start with game week 1, you have more of a chance to win. But the chances to win FPL are very, very slim. So if you want to try this game, you should enjoy it. You should enjoy it and play with your friends. But we'll cover that later with mini leagues and everything. And one last thing, even if you don't win FPL in your first season, don't get bummed out, because nobody does. And you still have some bragging rights to do if you join a mini league, as I said, but we'll cover that in a bit later. Now we can go to the details. So first of all, you have to set up your account. This is my account. This is already set up, so you don't have to copy this, but it's pretty straightforward for people that have done this before. It's not so much of a deal. You just put in your name, your name, your team, and everything else, your email address. And bear in mind, you cannot have two accounts on the same email address. And for fairness, you should only have one team, just one team, because it's fair to everybody else. And I think it's against the terms of service and everything like this. I'm not sure if you're allowed to have two accounts, but just one account is gonna be enough for a first timer anyway, so don't worry about it. And then after you set up your account, you have to build your first draft, because as I said, you have to get a team of players. Now, to build your team, there are certain rules that you need to be aware of. One, you only have a budget of 100 million pounds available to build your squad, but you cannot overspend those 100 million pounds that you get. You can get players that are the sum of their price is gonna be lower than 100 million, and you can keep the rest in the bank, as all FPL managers call it. In the bank is when you have some budget left to use it later, but we'll see why I'm going with this one. You will see that player prices are very different. Some are cheap, some are not that cheap, and they can differ throughout the season. I'll explain that later. Their price is set by the game based on their previous season performance, and if they come from another league, they're gonna compare it with similar players in Premier League, so that's why they're gonna price them in a certain way. Rule number 2 is that you have to have 15 players in your squad. 2 goalkeepers, 5 defenders, 5 midfielders, and 3 attackers or strikers, however you want to call them. Out of those 15, you can only play 11 of them in your starting squad, like real football. Another rule is that you cannot select more than 3 players from a team. That gives you flexibility, but that kind of constrains you in a way. But the purpose of the game is that they have to promote all the Premier League teams, so you cannot have all the, I don't know, Liverpool team, the whole 11 Liverpool players, and then just go with it, because that wouldn't be that fun. Now, to build your team, there are certain rules that you need to be aware of. Rule number 1 is that you only have 100 million pounds at the start of the game. You cannot overspend on players, so you have to be within your budget there of 100 million. You can save 1 million or half a million for later days, just to use it when needed, because I think you're gonna need it at some point. You'll see that player prices are gonna differ. Some of them are cheap, some of them are not that cheap, and then throughout the season their prices gonna change. More on that later, but just be aware of that. So that's why some people, some managers keep like a million or half a million in their bank after they're building their first draft. Now let's show you how a team looks like. Yeah. So as you've seen, I've kept 0.5 million in the bank for a later date. So building your squad is not an easy task, but I'll go through some rules that you need to take care of when you're building it. First of all, you have 2 goalkeepers, 5 defenders, 5 midfielders, and 3 attackers or strikers, however you want to call it. Second rule is that you're not allowed to have more than 3 players from the same team. As you can see here, I have 3 from Manchester City, 3 from Arsenal, and that's pretty much it. Because the purpose of the game is that you have to play a lot of different players from a lot of different teams. But you should always have in your starting 11 at least 1 goalkeeper, 3 defenders, 2 midfielders, and 1 striker. That gives you opportunity to play a lot of different formations with your 11. 4-4-2, 4-3-3, 3-5-2, whatever you like. Now you've selected your squad, and we're gonna move on to see how the scoring works and how you're gonna make points, the points that I've talked about earlier. So with this squad, you're gonna go to game week 1. Game week 1 is basically the first set of games in the Premier League, and there are 38 of them. We're gonna talk about game weeks a little bit later, but first of all, this game week 1 is very important because on the 11th of August, you're gonna have your first deadline. A deadline is that timestamp when your team is gonna be locked, and afterwards you cannot change it. You just wait to see how the game week unfolds and how the matches go and what your players are gonna score. And speaking about scores, we're gonna go through the scoring system. The scoring system is a bit confusing for some people that haven't seen it, so it might be for you. What I need you to understand is that players can score in not so many different ways as you see here. The most important ones are if a goalkeeper or a defender scores a goal, there's gonna be 6 points, 5 points for a midfielder, and 4 points for a forward. That's for goals. 3 points for each assist, whatever player scores it, or I mean passes it, and it's gonna be a goal. And then they're gonna receive some points for minutes as well. And with addition with prolonged additional times here, like the World Cup had now in the new season for Premier League, the clean sheets are gonna be very, very hard to get for defenders. But for playing 60 minutes and under, a player is gonna get 1 point, and everything over 60 minutes are gonna get 2 points. And the clean sheet for a goalkeeper or defender is gonna be 4 points. The clean sheet is that thing when a team doesn't receive or concede any goal. So it's gonna be 1-0 or 2-0 and whatever. And then you can go through all of these scoring things that I've laid here, but those are the most important things. Now, each player in your starting 11 is gonna score some points. I don't know, 5, 10, whatever score. These scores are gonna obviously add up to a total, and that's your game week score. And while are we here in the scoring system tab, we're gonna talk about some things that you're gonna see after you build your squad. First of all, we're gonna talk about captain and vice captain. So each week you have to select a captain from your starting 11. That player is gonna score double the points. So if you pick Haaland as your captain, whatever points he has, let's say 10 in a match, double is gonna be 20. And then your vice captain is also important, but you don't need him as much as you think. Your vice captain is there just in the eventuality that your captain doesn't play any minutes in that match. And speaking of not playing, there will be some instances in the season that you select a player and he doesn't play any minute, so he's gonna score 0 points because he did not play. But there are some players that are gonna score -1 or -2 or even 0, but they played, so that 0 is gonna count to your total. I'm speaking here about when your player is not playing at all. So that's why you have your other 4 players, your bench players, because when your player has not played any minute, it's gonna be automatically substituted with one of your bench players. There are rules for that, and I'm gonna explain it later in another video. But what you need to understand is that if a player doesn't play, you're gonna have a substitution going on at the end of the game week when all the points add up and they're gonna make the rank. One last thing, if your captain or your vice captain doesn't play, I mean either of them play, nobody in your team will gonna score double points for that week. So beware on how you choose your captain or your vice captain. The next section is gonna be about transfers and managing your team. You can change your team at any point during the season by transferring in and out players. But there are some caveats here. First of all, before the season starts, so before game week 1, you have unlimited transfer. So what that means is that you can change your team as much as you want, but as the season moves forward, you will only have 1 free transfer a week. What that means is you can make 1 transfer per week without any cost, but staying in your budget limit that I've talked before. Remember, you cannot overspend. After that 1 free transfer, you can make more, but each one will cost 4 points out of your total points tally. So let's say you have 100 points in game week 1, and that's a very good score for game week 1, and you do 3 transfer for the next game week, right? For game week 2. 1 will be free and the others will cost 4 points. So at the end of the day, you made 3 transfer that will cost 8 points. So at the start of your game week 2, you will have basically 92 points, but they're not gonna be deducted from your game week 1 point. So from those 100 that you already got, they're gonna be deducted from your total score from game week 2. So bear that in mind. It's not gonna cost you points like literally -4, -4, -4 from your first 100 in this example. No, it's gonna cost from the total from game week 2. And if you watch this channel more, I talk a lot about hits and taking hits, so don't worry about it. You're gonna have a lot of information about them. Another thing to know about managing your squad is that you can choose to not do a transfer, that free transfer that you get from the game. You can choose to not do it. And the next week, you're going to have 2 free transfers. So you can move Haaland and Darwin to Nkunku and Kane for free. I mean, I think you have the money because of their prices. But what I'm trying to say here that you can do those transfers without costing any of your points. Obviously, if you do the third one, it's gonna cost 4 points. But in this zone with free transfers and rolling, you have to know that you cannot have more than 2 free transfers accumulated. So let's say between game week 1 and game week 2, you decide not to do a transfer, right? So after game week 2, you're gonna have 2 free transfers. So between 2 and 3, you have 2 free transfers. If you don't do another transfer here, you're not gonna have after game week 3, you're not gonna have 3 free transfers. That's not possible. I mean, you can consider it's possible, but it's not. So the game only gives you 2 free transfers at maximum. And if we talk about transfers and everything, there is one thing that I've mentioned before, but you should very, very much be aware of. Player prices are gonna change throughout the season, and let's have a look at one player price. So, for example, Darwin Núñez. His price is at 7.5 million. Depending on how he does, on how much popularity he gets throughout the season, his price is gonna rise or fall. Because let's say, for example, if in the first match against Chelsea he scores 2 goals, people are gonna notice, and he's gonna be more popular because in game week 2 he has Bournemouth at home, so that's an easy fixture. So people will think that he's gonna score more. Therefore, they're gonna buy him. I mean, selling, I don't know, Nkunku for Darwin Núñez. And depending on how many players, how many managers are gonna bring Darwin into their team, his price is gonna rise. Because let's say from 13% ownership is gonna move to, let's say, 25% ownership. I think his price is gonna move up. And there's one thing to know, that every day, I think around midnight UK, the player prices are changing depending on how many transfers they were in. So let's say Darwin goes up, right? The rule is once per day he can only go up by 0.1 million pounds, and at the maximum of 0.3 million per game week. So unfortunately, if he scores like a hat-trick, you're gonna probably see him in game week 2 at the price of 7.8 million. And not a lot of people have money in the bank, as I said earlier, so not a lot of people are gonna be able to buy him. And the same rules applies for price falls as well. But there is one thing to know here. During the season, you're gonna have players that fall in price and rise in price. And you should know that when a player rises in price, on the site it's gonna say buying price and selling price when you look at the player information. So let's say Darwin goes up by 1. So now his price is 7.6. When you sell him, you're gonna sell him for 7.5, because your team value, your, let's say, profit is gonna be when Darwin actually rises 2 times. So when Darwin goes to 7.7, if you had him from 7.5, you're gonna be able to sell him for 7.6. Basically, for 0.2 that goes up, you can profit 1. So it's like a 50% profit, if you like. But for player prices fall, if he goes down to 7.4, you're gonna sell for 7.4. And hopefully I was explicit enough, but if not, sound off in the comments and I'll try to explain it in writing or in another video to be more concise with this stuff. But you should know, because in, I think, first 10 game weeks, player prices are gonna be so volatile and people are gonna make a lot of transfers, so you have to be aware of that. That's why I told you that you should know very, very well these price changes. And next section, we're gonna be talking about blanks and doubles. So blank game week or double game week is a concept that not many people understand, and it's not that hard. Basically, in specific weeks, some teams will not have a game, and that's called a blank. And in other weeks, some teams will have 2 matches. I think it was sometimes 3 matches, but that happens very rarely. That's why we call them doubles, because they have 2 matches, and that's a double. In a blank game week, players from that team will not play and therefore score no points whatsoever. In a double game week, players will score from both of the matches and they add up. Pretty simple, right? For example, in game week 2, Luton versus Burnley will be a blank because I think there's a problem with the construction of Luton Stadium and the Premier League actually postponed their match. It's gonna be rescheduled later this season, and those two teams will play the regular match. That's, let's say, with Burnley will play Crystal Palace and Luton will play Man City, let's say. And at the middle of the week, probably, they're gonna play this match. So for that week only, Burnley and Luton will have a double game week. Pretty simple, right? If not, let me know in the comments. And another thing about blanks and double game weeks, you should know that these are the most fun game weeks that we have in FPL. And this is where strategies emerge and where points are made or seasons are gone or won. So you should be very aware of these double game weeks, especially because I think in January or February they're gonna come and you're gonna see how people from, let's say, rank 500,000, they're gonna shoot up to 100,000 or maybe 50,000. So a huge increase in rank because they played their chips very well. Oh, you don't know what chips are? So let's go to chips and see what chips are and what are these things that you call for chips, and what are those chips that I'm talking about. So the chips are, let's say, powers, if you want to treat this like a video game. Actually, there are some things that can improve your enjoyment and fun in this game. So we have four types of them: triple captain, bench boost, free hit, and wild card. Triple captain is pretty self-explanatory. In 1 week, you can get triple the points for your captain when you regularly get double the points. That's not a big deal, but one thing to know here, people tend to use them in a double game week. Let's say Haaland has Burnley away. No, Burnley away is game week 1. So Burnley at home and Crystal Palace away. So 2 pretty good games for Haaland. He's gonna score a lot of goals, so that's why he's gonna benefit from the double game week. That's why you do the triple captain on him, because you have the most chances to get a lot of points from that chip. Bench boost is another simple one. In a normal game week, only your first 11 will score points, but if you activate this chip, the scores from your bench will be added to your total as well. So let's say you have another 2 defenders and 1 midfielder in your put on your bench for that game week, and that game week only, those 3 guys and the goalkeeper, the reserve goalkeeper, we're gonna add points to your total. This chip is also used in double game weeks because for the most points that it can get. Now, I'm gonna cover the wildcard first, and afterwards we're gonna go to the free hit because it's gonna be easier to understand. The wildcard is a team overhaul chip. So when you activate this chip, you can do, again, unlimited transfers with no cost to change your team entirely, or just 4 players or 6 players or whatever players. One thing to note here, if you have to do like 3 transfers, I think is a waste if you use your wildcard, because when people activate their wildcard, they usually change 5 to 6 or even more players at a time. So that's why they use a wildcard, because it's basically free transfers for 1 week. And you have to know that after you using your wildcard and build your wildcard team, that team is gonna stick. That team is gonna be permanent for you. You're gonna change it, and from now on you're gonna play with those players. That's not the case if we're gonna use the free hit. The free hit is a 1 week temporary team. So when you activate the free hit, you're gonna still have unlimited transfer. You can change your team however you want, but that team is gonna last just 1 week. So let's say you activate your free hit after game week 4. So towards game week 5. Game week 5, it's gonna have the new free hitted team, as in your overhaul, your all transfers in one week. And then after game week 5 is gonna be ended, in game week 6, you're gonna have the players that you had in game week 4. So that's why it's called a free hit. You're gonna select a team for just 1 week, and then you go back to your old players, let's say. Bear in mind one rule, that you can only use one chip per week. So in one game week, you can only use one of these 4. And the other one is that triple captain, bench boost, and free hit, you only have one per season, and you have 2 wildcards per season. I think the first wildcard is until December 30th, and afterwards you're gonna get the second wildcard. But you should bear in mind, if you don't use your first wildcard and December comes around, then you're gonna lose it. But you'll see that it's fun to build a new team, and content creators are gonna talk about using your wildcard, changing your team, and you pretty much know how you can do that, and you will use it, not burn it. One thing to note about the wildcard and the free hit is that after using them, you're gonna have one free transfer afterwards, I say. Even if you had 2 free transfers rolled over from the previous weeks and you activate the free hit or wildcard, at the end of this game week that you use it for, you're gonna have only one. Just to bear in mind, because people have complained about this and you should know about it. And now we're gonna talk about bragging rights, or how I call it, mini leagues. As you can see, I'm basically in my league that you can join, FPL Hitman Legends, and then one mini league with my friends. This is the bragging rights that I've said before. Even if you don't actually win FPL, this is the overall. When you see there on the right, overall, that's the global rank. And then you join your country league and your teams league, basically, and you can compete in everything, but the most fun is the mini league that you have with your friends. Then you can talk trash to and everything else. So that's why I put here the leagues, because this is what makes FPL fun. Because if you're competing with 10 million managers, you're not gonna have any feedback from them or something like this. But if you compete with your friends, let's say a group of 5-10 friends, and then you can brag about it, right? So that's why I included this league thing. And then for the end, I wanted to show you something that a lot of managers use. So I call these tools and resources, because yes, there are a lot of tools and resources out there, but the best ones, or I think the ones that I use, were Fantasy Football Scout and Football Hub. There are 2 platforms that actually provide you a lot of different tools, like rating your team, expected goals, expected assists, and all kinds of stats for your players. Basically, they're trying to help you to get to better decision when selecting your squad and managing your squad throughout the season. They have YouTube channels, so you can watch them and find out about how those platforms work. Bear in mind that both of them have a monthly or yearly subscription. I don't really know which one, but you have to pay to use their sites. It's nothing much, like £3-5 a month, but they're very useful. And if you go down the list, you're gonna find some free stuff. FPL, that team that I've used the last season very, very regularly. I think every game week I use this is a team planner that you don't have to do your planning on FPL site, because I've had friends that did like 20 transfers because they didn't know how to use it, and 20 transfers, it means a lot of points for the hits that I've talked about. So use a team planner because it's very good, and you can switch between game weeks, and they have all the players there with the prices. FBref for team and player statistics. As I told you, they have Opta stats like Football Scout and Football Hub, so you can use that as well. But the thing that Fantasy Football Scout and Fantasy Football Hub have is that they have a more user-friendly platform than FBref. So that's why you can use their platform as well. But if you don't want to pay, you can use other stats on FBref, and I think FPL official site have some stats as well now, so you can use those as well. But they're more user friendly, the ones above. The FPL statistics is a player prices predictor. Basically, they keep track of how many managers transfer in or out specific players, and they're pretty good at what they're doing, because FPL doesn't share those stats with us. So more often than not, when they say it's gonna rise in price, they're gonna rise in price, players I mean. So it's a very good thing to use at the start of the season, because player prices are gonna be up and down like crazy. And then you have FPL Game Week. This is like a tracker for rank and for your mini leagues to see, let's say during a game week, how you are in your mini league, how your rivals are in a mini league. And one thing that I gotta say, I didn't put it here in the graphic, is live FPL. Just search it for Google, and same thing, it's a tracker. It's a very good tool to use for your FPL enjoyment and management of your squad. Good. I think I've covered a lot of things, and hopefully I did not bore you as much as probably. Okay, we covered about everything that I've thought of. Let me know in the comments if you have other topics that you want me to cover in this guide. I think I'm gonna do a part 2, let's say, I don't know, a week from now, just before the season start, because probably there are some things that I did not cover. So I'm gonna leave you with good luck this season. Hopefully you win FPL, and then I don't know, if you enjoyed this video and find it useful, press like, press subscribe, whatever. Just let me know you're there, and then good luck.